geeks, welcome back to the channel. Genesis here. Today we're going to talk about the 7Hz Legato. Let's go. Here's everything that the 7Hz Legato came with. You have a giant case. You have two types of ear tips, the earpieces, the cable, and replacement filter. So first, the giant case. As you can see, it's very large and strong, but it's not at the Pelican plastic case level. There's a subsurface inside that you can use to hold the IEMs in a better shape, or you can remove that and you can fit a whole music player plus an IEM, two IEMs, or even two music players together in this box. Regarding the stock cable, we have a 4-course cable, which is soft, very well behaved, and not microphonic. The hardware are a little bit small and not very luxurious, but it's good for the price and practical purpose. Regarding the ear tips, we have two kinds. One type of ear tips have larger opening. The other one has smaller opening so that you can control and reduce the amount of treble. About the earpiece themselves, they are small but thick. They have long nozzle in order to accompany the tweeters, the 6mm dynamic drivers. However, the part that actually go into your ear canal is actually short. So when you wear this IEM, they will poke out from your ears. They would never lay flat against the concha of your ears. So to accompany for this problem, the two pins has been angled inward so that it can prevent the ear hook from popping out from your ears when you wear the earphones. I think this is good attention to detail. Regarding the earpiece themselves, they are fully metal shell with no gap, even though you can still see a seam line. My unit also has some small tool marks, but for the price, I think it is very solid build quality. Let's talk about the tuning of the Legato. The overall tuning of Legato can be described as L-shape, which means when you listen to these earphones, you will have strong emphasis on the true bass response region. That means more rumble, more punch, rather than more warmth or mud in the lower mid-range. If you look at the graph, you can see the reason is because we have a decibel boost in the bass above the ear gain region. So that means when you listen to bassy music, you will hear a very strong bass punch with a very unbelievable level of rumble. When you listen to non-bassy music such as string quartet, orchestra, your music would feel more weighty and more tactile. It's like there's a physical sensation, the snappiness when there's a string pluck or the tapping of the finger on the fingerboard of the cello. So when you listen to a string quartet, the bass and the cello might be louder, but the overall balance of the orchestra or quartet is not too different than the normal. Move on to the mid-range. The mid-range of 7Hz Legato has additional warmth, so that means musical notes have more thickness and weight. But at the same time, the mid-range still feel open and transparent than what you would expect. The reason is there's a linear response from around 500 Hz up to 1000 Hz. It's flat around there. The warmth is because you still have 5 decibel boost at around 250 Hz. But still, when you listen to male vocal, such as Cat Stephen in Fathers and Son, you will feel his voice very natural and musical without being muffled or odd. Moving on to the upper mid-range. I would say the upper mid-range is laid back because it's only 7.5 decibel above the neutral line, rather than the full Harman 12 decibels. However, I think it is enough to give female vocals proper voicing and brightness. And I also find that the vocal is never shouty. That means it never feels very loud, very bright, very in your face. In my opinion, this is good upper mid-range tuning. Moving on to the treble region. It is not as emphasized, but it still have adequate presence in the treble region. So with this earphone, you will have strong emphasis at around 6 kHz. So that means you will have more snappy attack and stick impact. So combining the sub-bass response that I mentioned with the 6 kHz, that's how you have that physical sensation, the weight and the snappiness to the sound. The 8 kHz is not pushed forward, so that means cymbals and hi-hats are not splashy, not too bright. That means easier for you to hear details in these instruments. The air region around 15 kHz to have decent amount of energy to give you a sense of air, a sense of room, reverb and decay, but it's not too strong. So for example, when I listen to Wanted Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi, I can hear and follow the cymbals and hi-hats. I can hear the details in those instruments, but it will take some effort. It's not like popping out. So in conclusion, I find the tonality of the 7Hz Legato to be pleasant and interesting. It has very unusual tuning. Usually when you have an L-shaped tuning, when you have a bassy tuning, you would have a lot of bass, and then you would also have a lot of ear gain upper mid-range region to give more snappiness, to give more brightness to balance. It's very rare nowadays to have an L-shaped tuning with big bass and the linear response around the mid-range and the treble region, which is more mellow compared to the other V-shaped sound that I described. The bass response is without a doubt the highlight of the 7Hz Legato. It is clearer and cleaner than what you might expect given just the sheer amount of bass that these IEMs can produce. Bass attacks have clear and sharp edge if the lower frequencies are not grounded by the music. And the bass is both loud and physical. So you will hear strong and clear rumble and resonance. So for example, the iconic opening of Hotel California. For every kick, you would hear a snappy attack. So that means at the top of the attack of the kick drum, there's a clear physical punch sensation. Every kick also hangs around a little bit extra, so to create a sense of rumble and resonance of the bass across the soundstage. At the same time, the bass guitar does not get mixed into the kicks, so you can still easily follow the bass line. Another good example to showcase the bass response of this IEM is the main opening theme of Skyrim on Dragonborn. So at the beginning of this piece, there's a strong, constant attack of the bass drum. So you will hear a strong rumble and you have strong sense of pressure at the beginning, even down to your throat and your chest. However, there's a limitation. Around 2 minutes into the piece, when the music gets more grounded, when there's a lot of things going on in the lower frequency, the attack of the bass notes start to lose their crispness and clarity. I still think that the bass response is a special feature of the 7Hz Legato because it has a crazy amount, but at the same time is still remarkably well controlled and rarely overstayed its welcome. So I would say the bass response is excellent. Soundstage and imaging is another bright spot in the performance of the Legato. With most of my music, I hear a wide and deep soundstage that is also open thanks to the generous amount of venting that these IEMs have. For example, when I listen to Hotel California, I can hear the bass drum right in the center of the soundstage. But at the same time, all the instruments and vocal are spread out further away from the center of the stage and also away from each other, both to the side and front and back. The sense of distance between the layers of instruments from closer to further away is more noticeable, stronger than, say, the aria or the blessing tune. At the same time, the whole soundstage of Legato is also pushed away from me, just a few steps. So at times, the music seems to come from in front of me rather than just inside my head. So I would say the soundstage has good size and good distance. However, the soundstage imaging of legato has one weakness in terms of the precision and the clarity of the image. To put it simply, the imaging is not tuck sharp or pinpoint, so you would hear the instrument to be in a certain area or zone on the soundstage, rather than at a particular point or location on the soundstage. But still, I found the soundstage and imaging capabilities of the legato is solid, even from the perspective of someone who pays a lot of attention to the soundstage and imaging, like myself. It works fine for most of my orchestral music and soundtracks. The resolution is, unfortunately, not a strength of the legato. In terms of note definition and separation, I would say the legato is adequate. It is not tuck sharp, but at the same time, there's still noticeable boundary between notes. So it will take you some effort to follow and track individual instruments in fast and busy musics. For example, when you listen to the presto movement of the Summer Violin Concerto or Gold by Polifia. The wide soundstage of these IEMs helps a lot to cover for the limitations in terms of the separation, so the music is not too mushy and not too congested with the legato. So if I have to compare, I would say the legato resolution in terms of the separation and notes definition is roughly about the area level, noticeably behind the Blessing 2, but at the same time better than the Shure SE215. In terms of the detail retrieval, again, I would say the legato is adequate. For example, when I listen to a detail-rich recording, such as the flute partita in A minor, I can hear major details, but at the same time, I always have a sense that the flute is a little bit too smoothened. It's like a layer of information is just slightly there, slightly barely audible, but it's not exactly there. But when I listen to the same recording with the aria or the Blessing 2, I can hear that layer. But still, the detail retrieval is still one step above the Shure. So I would say the 7Hz Legato is adequate in terms of the separation and clarity so that you can enjoy some complex recording without getting too annoyed. But at the same time, this is not a good IEM if you want to sit down and pay a lot of attention, a lot of focus to the details of the music. In conclusion, I think legato is a unique IEM. 7Hz approached legato with a vision, and they delivered on that vision. This IEM has unique sound signature that is actually pleasant to the ears. It has properly done extreme bass response, and it has large, deep, and open soundstage, which was a surprise to me. The only limitation of this IEM, in my opinion, is the resolution and detail retrieval. It is adequate, but it is not as good as the rest of this presentation and the tuning. So if 7Hz can improve the mid-range resolution further when keeping everything the same in the next version of this IEM, I think it's going to be an excellent IEM and possibly the spiritual successor to the legendary Sony Z1R. So who is this IEM for? I think this IEM is excellent for beginners and casual listeners who just get into this hobby and want something basic, fun, good to listen to. At the same time, I think this IEM is also a unique addition to the collection of audio geeks who have been around and have a lot of different IEMs. So, based on this, I would highly recommend this IEM. So that's all about the legato. If you have any question, please leave a comment. Until then, see ya!